notify me when the address changes, and the property change support helps me out there. He does that check for me instead of us having to do the check. So that's a much more simpler code now. Make sense? Okay, so that's the basic idea behind a Java bean and some of the things you can do with it. There are other things you can do with it that I'm not a big fan of. There's an idea of constrained properties. And constrained properties, they notify you before they change. And then the listeners can veto by throwing an exception. And this sounded like a good way to do validation up front. You can just plug in whatever validators you want as vetoable change listeners. And if they don't like the new value, they just throw a vetoable change exception or property veto exception. The problem there is now you've lost the actual value. You called the set, and then the value doesn't actually get set. So a better way to do validation in general is let the model contain the values, but mark it invalid, and keep track of why things are invalid. So that's something else you can do. And then the other thing you can do with these is if you have more generic, I'm going to call them events that you want to fire. So anything other than property change support, you can set up listeners like we did to the Sun listener, for example. And that's something that could be used in a GUI builder as well. It gives you the ability to right-click on a little bean on the screen, like let's say it's a person. You can right-click on him, and any events that were set up, so let's say he had a Sun listener, we could say when sun rose, because he can just look and say, oh, I see an add something something and remove something something, and these